already been a fascinating offseason for the Minnesota Vikings. And after all the work they've done in veteran free agency, after all the rumors, all the quarterback speculation, here the Vikings sit thinking about the draft, probably locked in. And it sounds like, as reported, locked in with J.J. McCarthy as their lead quarterback, probably looking to get somebody like Ryan Tannehill after the draft. It's all kind of settled down in that direction. It's probably time to ask, what exactly should the Vikings do in this draft with the 24th pick? Let's get together and let's get into that here with John Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune. This is the Viking Update Show. This is one of our two Viking shows at TalkNorth.com. The other one is Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider with the former Vikings general manager who's so good at telling you how all this stuff works, how the salary cap works, and what he expects and what his sources are telling him. So this is more of a writer's view of the Vikings from two people who've been covering and watching the Vikings for decades. And the draft is always fascinating one way or another. Viking Update Show is presented to you by Giggly THC Beverages, Giggly.com, Gigli.com, and Onyx Hunt. And we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. They say knowledge is power, and power is having a great plumber and electrician on speed dial. Enter Aquarius Home Services. Whether your toilet's bubbling like a science experiment or your lights are blinking like a strobe light, we have you covered. Plus, get $98 off any electrical or plumbing repair. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com and let the experts handle the chaos. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
All right, John, what do you think they should do with that first pick?
Yeah, Jim, I mean, I've kind of been thinking about this a lot and trying to see what the best possibility or pathway is to maximizing their return on this class. And I'm not generally one of those guys who is like gets enamored with trading down and accumulating more picks. Like I generally am of a philosophy that the more higher picks you can have, the better chance you have of really hitting on someone who can be special, who can turn into a starter, a Pro Bowl level player, or more. And so, I kind of sometimes look at the hyperventilation that comes with, if you trade down and you trade down 20 picks and you pick up a fourth and a seventh or something, man, that's great. And that's awesome, because how often do the seventh round, fifth round, sixth round guys really pan out? So, but I've sort of come around to a little bit different feeling on it in this specific year, because it seems like at 24, the ideal thing that they would do, or the highest possible probability, is that they go with an interior offensive lineman at, center guard, someone like that, Gray Zabel, someone like that, to grab and to give them a little depth, and maybe even just the starter at the other guard position that they're really looking for. And so if they have gotten to the point, or if the board falls the way that some people anticipate, and that their best option at 24 is an interior offensive lineman, I would be a little bit more open to the idea of trading down, because I think that the probability of getting an interior offensive lineman, early in the second round, later in the first round, whatever it is, and having that player be a good player, while also accumulating another couple of picks to do that, makes sense to me. If they were looking for a cornerback, if they were looking for a receiver, if they were looking for, several other positions that typically are a little bit more top heavy, then I would be reluctant to do it. But if everything shakes out the way that it is, and they're looking interior offensive line, I think that is a spot historically that you can get a little bit later in the draft and have a guy still be relatively plug and play. And so that's kind of the way that I'm leaning right now as I look at the board, I look at their options and kind of figure out what they might want to do.
Yeah. If they had to decide this minute whether to keep the pick or trade down, not knowing exactly who's going to fall to them, I would prefer that they just take the best player available at 24 and not mess around. I think the fact that they've done so well acquiring veterans through free agency and trade, the roster is so strong in so many places. I want to see them get a star caliber player at 24 instead of taking the chance that, you trade down and you get two. I'd rather have them get a star caliber player or a sure starter caliber player than two guys who are a little bit more of a question mark, who might pan out, but who are a little more high risk. I would rather have them keep the pick and use the pick. What's interesting here is, I covered Rick Spielman for a long time, and there were times when we got along. He was very communicative. There were times he didn't really respond to me at all. And I thought, but he also, when he was kind of nice Rick, he would actually have us out and he would, they'd go through how they run the draft and what their philosophy was and how they look for different players. The current Vikings regime sometimes does that, reporters after the draft. Spielman sometimes would do it before the draft. Brad Childress would do it before the draft. And I thought that Spielman had two really interesting philosophies, one of which I agree with completely, one of which I never agreed with. First philosophy was have a lot of picks, take a lot of swings at it.
He wanted 10 every year.
He wanted at least 10 every year.
Yeah.
And he didn't care if 3 of them were 7th round picks, because sometimes 7th round picks pan out. Sometimes you get a very affordable player in the 7th round who can contribute on special teams or maybe even surprise and be a starter. I didn't really agree with that. I just think that hoping that you're going to land somebody of value in the 7th round is a pipe dream. Even though it's going to happen once in a while, I don't think you build philosophically it's the right way to build a team. Here's where I did agree with Spielman's philosophy. And it's not completely unique to him. Of course, none of these ideas are unique. It's more about how you pull it off. His philosophy was, in a situation like this, if you have the 24th pick and you're on the clock, if one player is rated much higher than everybody else on your board, then you take the highest rated player, even if he's in a position of strength. You just don't pass on a true good NFL player, because they're always valuable. And it's better to have a great third receiver, even if you don't think you need a third receiver, than it is to have an average cornerback who's not going to pan out. He also believed if you get to your pick and there are 2, 3, 4 players all on the same tier, rated about the same, then you have the option of either picking for need. In other words, you take the guard instead of the receiver, or that's when you trade down because you feel like you can get one of your players you like at a lower pick and pick up extra assets. That's why we can't sit here and say right now, this minute, whether they should stay or trade down, because it's all going to depend on what's on the board. And at 24, as we know from watching Randy Moss fall, as we know from watching Jordan Addison be available at that pick, you just might get a really outstanding player there, and you might not be able to might not be wise to even worry about what position that player plays.
Yeah. And I do think too, Jim, that, I remember I was in a few of those with Spielman as well. And I always found it interesting because the idea of stacking a board, not just vertically, but also horizontally, yep. Right? So, I think before I got, I was lucky enough or fortunate enough to be in some of these meetings and really talk to the people who are in charge of laying out a draft board and figuring things out and prioritizing. I was always just watching the draft from a strictly vertical perspective. Okay, here's my number 1 prospect. Here's, Mel Kiper's number 38th prospect, and you go that way. But what you learn about not just Spielman, but I think Kwesi I think many people do it this way, is that the way that they stack the board horizontally is, like you said, there are tiers of players that, maybe there's Hall of Famers at the top, and then there's, multi-time Pro Bowlers and starters and, all sorts of different iterations of that. But also within those categories, then you stack, horizontally. So at the top of this tier, we have 4 players, and at the top of tier 1, we have 1 player and all of that. And so to your point of, if the Vikings get on the clock at 24 and they have, 3 or 4 guys that are right on the same horizontal level of what they like, then the idea of trading down makes a lot of sense, because they can, in their evaluation, get someone that they believe is relatively, equal in terms of overall talent, and also pick up a couple of other assets. It's dangerous because you never know. Maybe you're misreading the board. Maybe you have misanalyzed a player, but you kind of got to stick to your board that way. And I do think that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is the type of thinker about the game that would reduce the likelihood that the Vikings sort of reach for someone that they really need. Let's say that they're at 24 and Zabel's already gone and Donovan Jackson's already gone and a few others are gone, that they reach for like their 4th rated interior offensive lineman. I don't think that would be the case. I think they would either take their highest rated at another position, cornerback, defensive tackle, whatever it is, or they would trade down. Now, I think the tricky part is, Jim, here, where Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah shouldn't overthink things either. And I think more to your point of, if there's a really good player that you can add at that spot, just take him and fortify a team that you really feel good about from, number 2 on the roster all the way down to 52, just seeing exactly what happens with McCarthy at the top. But, and so I don't want to see him do what he did in his first draft of try and get cute and try and, kind of manufacture something and end up with nothing in his hands in reality. But I also think that he will be sober in looking at all of his options in that way. And I don't see him being either pressured into reaching or, saying, hey, we just need more picks. So I'm going to dump out of a spot where there's a player that I really like just for the sake of, building up our war chest a little bit.
Exactly. I want to get to the mock drafts that have been done and the fact that the Vikings.com is actually tracking the mock drafts, which is completely different than the experience I used to have when talking about mock drafts with Vikings officials. First, I want to tell you more about Gigli, Gigli.com, Gigli THC beverages. They taste great. I've tried all the cocktails. I've tried the teas. I've tried the seltzers. I love all of them. I especially like the cocktails because you're talking about no alcohol, no hangover, no aftertaste, bold fruit flavors. Taste like your favorite cocktails, only they won't leave you with a hangover. They won't leave you feeling groggy. They might even help you sleep. It's a local Minnesota business. You can find it at your favorite liquor store around Minnesota. You can also find them in all quick trips across Minnesota. You can also go to Gigli.com and use the promo code GigglyNorth to get 50% off your first order. I just did that myself. I have a big stockpile of it because it's just great stuff to drink. And again, there's no downside to it. So you don't worry about having it on a Wednesday night when you have to be up at 6 o'clock on Thursday morning. It's inexpensive. It's healthy. It's low calorie. It tastes great. What is not to like about Gigli? Gigli.com. Again, the promo code is GigglyNorth. I also want to ask, have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that, or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs? That's where Onyx Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country, from farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property. This app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started. Thanks also to one of our primary sponsors at TalkNorth.com, Aquarius Home Services. So, John, when I started covering the draft in 89 and 90, and especially 90, 91, 92, the Vikings had great scouts. They had a great talent evaluation system. Jerry Reichow and Frank Gilliam were highly respected throughout the NFL, and they just hated mock drafts. Because back then it was like they didn't take anybody who did a mock draft seriously. I think what we have discovered after decades and decades of mock drafts is, listen, NFL teams miss it too, right? Nobody's perfect. And why not just put out what you actually believe is going to happen, even if it has a chance of not missing? So Vikings.com themselves are now tracking all the different players projected to land them at number 24 by different people. And it's fascinating. So Vikings.com is actually buying into the whole mock draft, publicity thing. Nick Baumgartner and listen to this. Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic has the Vikings taking Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, the interior offensive lineman. CBS Sports has them taking safety from Georgia. Somebody else from CBS Sports has them taking a defensive lineman from Mississippi. Bucky Brooks from the NFL.com has them taking a safety from South Carolina. Walter Football has them taking a cornerback from Texas. Barstool has them taking a edge rusher from Texas A&M. 33rd Team, which is where Jeff Diamond writes, has them taking a cornerback from Kentucky. NFL.com, Charles Davis has them taking a safety from Georgia. NBC Sports has them taking a safety from South Carolina. It goes on and on. There's almost no consensus as to who they should take. And I think that's better. It's kind of good to have an accumulation of mock drafts. It tells you just how many possibilities are out there for the Vikings.
Yeah, especially, when this is obvious, but when you're at 24, there are so many different things that could happen in the 23 picks above them to dictate who is available, what they do, all of those things. And so, it just, the longer you go into a draft, the harder it is to project who is exactly going to be there. And then you also have to factor in how the Vikings are looking at this draft. Are they going into it saying we are one or two pieces away from a team that can win a Super Bowl? I think there's a real possibility that they are thinking that. I don't know that they are, but there is a real possibility. Or are they thinking that, hey, we have JJ McCarthy on a nice contract, but man, we're paying Jefferson a lot. We're paying, this guy a lot. We're paying a ton of people a lot of money. Do we have to diversify our picks and get just a lot more affordable talent in here? And is that the priority? I would guess, and here's what I guess is a good way to go with this. My hope is that the Vikings are going into this with a more aggressive mindset in terms of how close they are to actual contention. Because I do believe it, Jim. I don't think they're that many players away from being a roster that is close to Detroit, Philadelphia, some of the best teams in the NFC, of going there, provided that JJ McCarthy becomes a very good quarterback for you sooner rather than later. But, if they stay at 24, that tells me that they're thinking we are real close here. And if we hit on this pick, then we're in great shape going into not just, kind of be sniffing around a wild card or something like that, but to be a team that can come out of the NFC. And I think whatever they do on draft day will tell us just how confident they are in this roster.
Yes. All right. More Viking stuff to come. We want to hear from Talk North star Michael Russo for Clamshell Beach Resorts.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, No snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
I want to tell you about one of my favorite businesses, my favorite men's clothing store in Minnesota, Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com. I've been covering Timberwolves games. I've been going to, events. I've had reasons to dress up lately, for personal reasons. And I'm also contemplating a summer of, ball games and golf and everything else. And, I guess I should be telling you that I'm going to go to Twill and buy a bunch of stuff for the summer. The reality is the stuff is so high quality. It lasts so long without any signs of wear. I just don't need anything. Now I'll probably go get something just because I like spending money with Twill. And I appreciate everything Scott Dayton, the owner, has done for this network. But the stuff wears like iron. And so I am still wearing stuff I bought at Twill, 8 years ago. I wear the heck out of stuff I bought in the last year at Twill. I have stuff for my daughter's wedding that I'm going to be wearing that I bought at Twill. Basically, every time I leave the house where I actually care about what I look like, and that's not every day, but when I actually care about what I look like, I'm wearing Twill. Peter Millar stuff is fantastic. Johnny O, the Dingman shoes, the Brax pants, the Brax corduroys, the socks, and you can dress yourself from head to toe, hat to shoes. I got a beautiful pair of shoes that go with everything I own. Again, Martin Dingman. They have such good stuff. So go to twillmn.com. Check out all the different great brands they have that are hand selected by Scott Dayton. Sign up for email alerts. They will rarely send you an email. They'll only send you an email when they actually have an event that's worth knowing about. But I highly recommend going to the Edina Galleria, dropping by. It's a great shopping experience in the shop. It's a great experience at the Edina Galleria. Drop by, tell them Talk North and Jim Souhan and Scott and everybody here sent you, and you'll have a great conversation as well as getting great clothes. Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com. Finally, I want to tell you about Natrium, natrium.com. That's Natreum. The mothership store in St. Louis Park is probably the best place to start if you live in the Twin Cities. You can go to talk to a sales professional. You can figure out what is going to work for you. You can always go to natrium.com and order, and the variety is amazing. Balms for sore joints and muscles, oils that help your gut, quick fixes that help you with stressful situations. They have different dosages, different ingredients, but it's all healthy. It will all make you feel good. I like the sleep aids and the pain relief, but you might just want to, get a drink or get a gummy or a chew and have that, just have the way you enjoy a night or enjoy a weekend. It's great stuff. It's clean stuff. It's healthy stuff. Check it all out at natrium.com, but I do recommend going to the shop at least once to familiarize yourself with what's going to work best for you and what flavors you might like best. So thanks to natrium.com. Still interesting that Kwesi's deal isn't official yet. I don't think it's a bbig deal. I think it's going to get done, but I wanted to run it by you. What do you think?
I guess, Jim, but the longer that this stuff goes, you do wonder a little bit. You have to. Like, there's nothing to me that would indicate the Vikings wanting to go in a different direction. We're well into draft preparation. The draft is coming up. It's right around the corner. They're not going to make a change right now because they've made all of this prep, and they're not going to make a change right afterward either. I can't imagine, because if you were going to make a change, you wouldn't let Kwesi run another draft for you. So from a Vikings standpoint, I think that they are fully content going forward with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, and that they're trying to get a deal done. What is interesting to me, though, Jim, let's put this in another context. In the NBA, the Denver Nuggets, just a week before the playoffs began, axed their GM and their head coach. It was an unbelievable timing of a situation to fire Calvin Booth and Michael Malone just, right before the playoffs get started on a team that actually has home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. But things were going so poorly there between the two of them, and just kind of with the overall team, that they decided to just part ways early and cut bait. One of the things that has become clear in the reporting of that situation is that prior to this season, the general manager, Calvin Booth, who used to be with the Timberwolves, had an opportunity to sign a contract extension, and he did not do it. My guess is that he did not do that because he did not feel the offer from the Nuggets, who historically are a penny pinching franchise when it comes to front office financials, was enough. He probably felt like he was worth more than that he had they had won a championship. And they had a team that was going to be competitive this year. And so he sort of, quote unquote, bet on himself to go forward with it. Well, he bet on himself, and they go through this whole season. It goes really poorly at the end. It blows up, and now he's out of a job, and he didn't have a contract. And so, I mean, he played in the NBA. He's going to be fine money-wise, but he missed a real opportunity to have some more financial security by turning that down, and likely because he felt like he was worth more, that he deserved more, and it didn't get done. So to me, again, this is just a guess, but when you talk to people who know Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah well and who have kind of watched him come up the ranks and get to where he is, he very much has a strong sense of self, a strong sense of self-worth. And it would seem feasible or conceivable to me that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has a viewpoint of his value and what he wants in a deal. And that, they've won a bunch of games in 2 of his 3 seasons. But they have not yet made it all the way through. And so, it's possible that the Vikings have made him some sort of offer and he feels like, hey, I want more. And so if a deal does not get done and he goes into next season and he bets on himself, it can go one of 2 ways. It could go really well. Maybe the Vikings break through. Maybe they win a game or 2 in the playoffs. Maybe they go to the Super Bowl. Maybe magic strikes and they do it. Then he can name his price. He can do whatever he wants. He will have incredible leverage in that situation. If it goes a little poorly, if it doesn't work out, if they do kind of spin out, if the draft picks don't work out, if things like that happen, then, he is in a little more danger of, okay, is this going to be a shorter term thing, for him? So this is all just a long-winded answer of me saying, if I had to guess, and it is just a guess, I'm not reporting, I don't have intel on this, but to me, the most likely reason for a holdup is that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah views his value one way, and that the Vikings aren't quite there in terms of doing everything that he wants, whether it's from a year's perspective or money perspective or whatever it is. And how that gets resolved, we'll see. But like you said, I have not heard anything to be adversarial. I don't think that there's harsh feelings or anything like that. But I do think that these are 2 sides of a business agreement trying to figure out a place to meet, and they have not gotten there yet.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. I think that's exactly right. Kwesi doesn't want to undervalue himself. He has a healthy ego. He also is managing a very good team that if Sam Darnold hadn't collapsed the last 2 games, might have made a really fascinating playoff run. So I'm not saying he's even wrong. It's just it's going to be fascinating. Right now, I think because it's a quarterback position, because there have been so many different rumors and reports about what the Vikings might do, I think there is a certain amount of paranoia in the fan base about who the backup quarterback will be. I understand that. Jeff Diamond always says it's one of the most important jobs on the entire roster. I don't know. I just feel like they're probably going to end up with Tannehill. If they don't get Tannehill, they're probably going to end up with somebody like Carson Wentz. I guess I'm okay with that. Do you have a different opinion than that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this as well, because my natural inclination is to say, it's the backup quarterback. If JJ McCarthy either does not work out or gets hurt, the chances of your season going sideways, no matter who your backup quarterback is pretty high. So there's a certain level of ambivalence, just because I'm generally much more in the mode of, let's, lean all the way into your number one quarterback. Use your resources to get the best team around him and give him the best chance to succeed, and then go from there. And if you get unlucky with an injury, or if something doesn't happen with that way, you're kind of screwed anyway. And so, there's not a whole lot of sense in lamenting, who your backup quarterback is going to be. But Jim, you and I cover a franchise that has seen Case Keenum come in as a completely unheralded backup quarterback and lead the team to the NFC title game. You have seen Randall Cunningham come off the bench. Everyone thought, he's washed up. Season's over, that Brad Johnson's out. And then he ignites one of the best offensive seasons in NFL history, and they go to the NFC title game. Wade Wilson came off the bench. Like, the history of this team with backup quarterbacks coming in and being very impactful is a long and rich one. And so I just wonder if I'm sort of foolishly dismissing this as not something to be worried about. And maybe the fans are right here in terms of the nail biting that they are doing, because of JJ being unproven, because of him coming off an injury, and because they have seen so many examples in the past of unheralded backup quarterbacks coming in, dusting themselves off, Jeff George, whoever it is, and playing really well and being and turning seasons around, or rescuing seasons. So maybe I'm the idiot here and just not really worrying about it. And it really is that important, but I'm not losing sleep over it right now, even if I should be, I guess, is what I'd say.
And the fascinating thing is you can argue it either way. With the Vikings' history with backup quarterbacks, you can say, oh man, look how important it is to have a good backup quarterback. Or you can say, my God, almost you have no idea. Nobody thought Case Keenum was going to do what he did. Nobody thought Sam Darnold was going to do what he did. Nobody really expected Jeff George to play as well as he did in his brief time here. Randall Cunningham wasn't thought to be a 15-1 NFL quarterback at the time he got here. So I don't know if it means that you need to get a great backup quarterback, or that you just need to get the right guy at the right time and hope it works out.
Yeah, I think so. The counter to that is like a guy like Nick Mullins. Like, I just don't, he was okay, but not going to change the game for you. So, but yeah, I understand your point. And what you're saying is they could bring someone in, whether it's Tannehill, whether it's someone else. And the collective immediate reaction could be, really? Like, this guy? Well, if JJ McCarthy doesn't work out, season's over. But that's exactly what I said about Case Keenum. I remember it. Like, just like, Case Keenum, what has he done? Like, yeah, he had a great college career, but man, if they have to go to this guy for any stretch of a season, they are done for. And that was as much fun as I've had watching this team, like in a really, really long time, that season, and seeing the way that he did it. So, yeah, I think it's entirely possible that they make some sort of either trade or signing after the draft is over, so the compensatory pick situation is clear, and they and it's underwhelming in and of itself. But come week 7, if that person needs to be called upon, could he come in and under Kevin O'Connell and in a talent-rich offense light it up? Sure, why not? I mean, it's entirely possible that could be the case. Another reason, I guess, why I am more of just like, yeah, we'll see what happens, because we have seen all manner of quarterbacks come through here and pull the rabbit out of the hat. And so just because they didn't get Daniel Jones or Joe Flacco or, any number of other more well-known names on the market, I don't think it rules out them finding someone who in a pinch can be relied upon to do a good job.
Good stuff. We'll get more into mock drafts and possibilities next week. There's always news in the NFL, which is why it's so much fun to do these shows. Thank you for listening to TalkNorth.com. Thanks for listening to the Viking Update Show. We'll talk to you soon.